You probably think of outer space as the ultimate empty frontier, a vast, silent void with room for everyone, but right now, about 300 miles above your head, that illusion is shattering. The sky isn't empty anymore. It's starting to look like a crowded Los Angeles freeway at rush hour, except everyone is driving at 17,000 miles per hour. We're talking about 36,500 tracked objects larger than a grapefruit, a number that has spiked by 46% in just the last 3 years. Nearly half of everything we've ever launched into space was put up there in a blink of a historical eye. For decades, space was the Wild West. No rules, no consequences. If a satellite died, you just left it to rot. But that era ended abruptly in late 2023 when the FCC issued its first ever orbital parking ticket. They fined Dish Network $150,000 for failing to properly deorbit a retired satellite. While that sounds like pocket change for a telecom giant, the money isn't the point. The point is the precedent. The government is officially signaling that the free sky is closed. We've moved from the era of exploration to the era of traffic management. When regulators start handing out tickets 300 miles up, you know the real estate is getting tight. Think about that next time you look at the stars. We aren't just looking at the cosmos, we're looking through a layer of high-speed shrapnel. Beyond the 36,500 tracked items, there are over 1 million smaller fragments, lethal bullets of frozen paint and metal whizzing around untracked. At orbital speeds, a tiny screw has the kinetic energy of a hand grenade. We aren't just filling up the sky, we're arming it. This is no longer just a science problem. It's a massive multi-billion-dollar liability trap. We've reached a tipping point where the math simply stops working, and the safety of the infrastructure we rely on every day is hanging by a thread. How did we clutter the infinite void so quickly? It comes down to economics. For 50 years, space was ruinously expensive, requiring government-sized budgets. Then the SpaceX effect hit. Thanks to reusable rockets, the cost to launch a kilogram into low Earth orbit plummeted to about $1,500. A 60% drop in just a few years. It was the democratization of the sky. Suddenly, every tech startup and university could afford their own hardware. The door was kicked wide open, and everyone rushed in at once. But when you make the entry fee cheap, you get a gold rush. In this case, the prize is global connectivity. Companies are building mega constellations like Starlink that require thousands of satellites. Right now, SpaceX reports that in a single 6-month period, their satellites had to perform over 25,000 collision avoidance maneuvers. That's more than 130 dodges every single day. We've reached a point where dodging bullets is no longer an anomaly. It is a standard, daily operational cost of doing business in space. We used to talk about the Kessler syndrome, a chain reaction of collisions rendering orbits unusable as a scary sci-fi theory. But when you're dodging 25,000 times in 6 months, you realize we aren't waiting for the Kessler syndrome anymore. We're living in a managed version of it. The ESA recently warned that total orbital mass has hit 11,500 tons, a 22% jump in 3 years. We're packing more kinetic energy into a finite shell of space, and the margins for error are disappearing. If a single major collision happens that AI can't predict, the resulting cloud could delete GPS, weather tracking, and satellite internet in a single afternoon. Space has transitioned from a free frontier to a globally regulated utility. In 2026, the EU Space Act is expected to drop, and it's a game changer. It mandates that any company operating in their sky must have a plan for mandatory refueling or removal. Meanwhile, the FCC has cut the deorbiting grace period for dead satellites from 25 years down to just 5. The rules are tightening because the risk is becoming systemic. We are moving from launch and forget to pay to stay. This regulatory shift has birthed a brand new industry. The Space to Trucks, formerly known as the ISAM market, in space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. It is currently valued at $16.2 billion and projected to surge by 210%. Companies like Astroscale and Northrop Grumman are building robots designed to grab dead satellites and hurl them into the atmosphere to burn up. They aren't doing this for the environment. They're doing it because it's becoming legally mandatory. Soon, you won't get a license to launch unless you have a prepaid towing service. This is turning the space economy into a high-barrier, regulated real estate market. The little startups that benefited from cheap launch costs are being squeezed out by the multi-million-dollar debris tax required to manage their hardware. We're seeing the birth of a space infrastructure class companies that don't care about the internet or GPS, but about the maintenance of the vacuum itself. They are the hidden beneficiaries of the mess we've made, operating the ultimate toll booth business model. Without active removal of large objects every year, the ESA says low Earth orbit will become a graveyard. To understand the 2026 orbital trap, look back to the 1889 Oklahoma land run. Back then, the government opened unassigned lands and thousands raced to claim property. The Sooners snuck in early to grab the best spots. What we're seeing in orbit right now is the digital version of that land run. Companies are racing to squat on the best orbital slots and radio frequencies before anyone else. But unlike land, an orbital slot is dynamic.
You don't own a plot. You own a trajectory.
If one person's claim fails or explodes, it ruins the entire neighborhood. This has created a war between fundamental philosophies. On one side are the bulls like Elon Musk, who argue that space is immense and just needs a better traffic light system. On the other side are the bears, led by experts like Donald Kessler, who argue we've already passed critical density. Kessler believes the chain reaction has already started. And even if we stopped launching today, the junk already up there would continue to crash into itself and grow. The data supports the bears. Major insurers like Munich Re and Marsh are already hiking satellite insurance premiums by 15 to 20%. They aren't doing that because space is immense. They're doing it because their risk models show that collisions are now a statistical certainty. The market is pricing in the disaster before it even happens. We are witnessing the end of the free sky era and the beginning of the high-risk era, where every launch is a gamble against a growing field of high-speed debris. Let's bring this back to Earth. You might think this is just a problem for billionaires, but the $42 billion orbital trap has a direct line to your wallet. There are currently over 4.5 million satellite internet subscribers worldwide, and that number is growing. As insurance costs climb and companies are forced to pay for space tow trucks, those costs won't vanish. They'll be baked into your monthly subscription fee. We are entering the age of the debris tax. It's not just about the price, but the reliability. In a crowded sky, the risk of a latency blackout where your connection drops because a satellite had to perform an emergency dodge becomes a real possibility. Your GPS accuracy, weather forecasts, and the timing of global financial transactions all rely on a clear path to the stars. We've built a civilization that assumes the sky is a reliable, free resource, but the math is failing. Keeping the sky open is about to become a permanent line item in the global economy. The number is 36,500 tracked objects, a 46% increase in 3 years. We are moving toward a future where internet quality isn't just about fiber optic cables, but about how clean the vacuum above your head is. The next time you see a shooting star moving steadily, remember it's likely a piece of a multi-billion-dollar machine navigating the world's most dangerous parking lot. Every byte of data you receive from above now comes with a hidden tax. The orbital trap is set, and we are all about to start paying the bill for a sky that is finally, truly